The contents have it. In Clause 1, Amendment 1, Baroness Bennett of Manor Castle.
My Lords, I rise to move Amendment 1 and speak to Amendment 2 in my name, and will briefly comment on the other amendments in this group. Many peers will no doubt overnight have received the joint briefing on the bill from the Friends of the Earth, England, Wales and Northern Ireland, the Land Workers Alliance, the Consortium for Labelling for the Environment, Animal Welfare and Regenerative Farming, known as CLEAR, the Soil Association, GM Freeze, Organic Farmers and Growers and the Organic Research Centre. The tone of that reflects what I'm hearing from both academics and campaigners. They feel let down by your Lordship's House. At committee stage in this bill, we had a detailed, informed and very productive debate on the contents of this bill and the science behind it. And I can only single out the noble Lord, Lord Winston, for his rich and expert contributions and many amendments tabled at that stage. Then they saw the list of amendments for report before I tabled the amendments in my name. And it seemed as though all of that debate at committee and all of the issues raised there, not satisfactorily answered by the government, had dissolved in a puff of smoke, or perhaps of gene-edited pollen. Many members of your Lordship's House were at a very informative online briefing on Friday and heard from an academic expert, Dr. Michael Antoniou from King's College London, about his concern. And I think most were copied into the detailed subsequent written exchanges that continued that debate. With that in mind, since Hansard does not yet allow the referencing of speeches, I'm going to put on the record 2 articles that I'd urge every noble lord and civil servant who'll be involved in this bill and subsequent regulations to read and ponder. Nature, 12th of January 2022. Mutation bias reflects natural selection in Arabidopsis thalanalia. From March 2021, Elementa, Science of the Anthropocene, differentiated impacts of human interventions on nature, scaling the conversation on regulation of gene technologies. In short, the first is a substantial debunking of the claim that the mutations occurring in nature are random. Now, this is a subject of continuing scientific debate and a claim relied on heavily by the supporters of this bill, but increasingly evidently incorrect. The second makes the point that even if you were to concede that similar detrimental changes take place through natural means, they are not transmitted around the world at a scale that our globalised industrial agricultural systems can spread mistakes before they're recognised. Now, your Lordship's House will note the date of those articles. The understanding of genetics, and particularly epigenetics, is fast changing, and this bill is stuck in the understandings of the 20th century. Now, all of the amendments today, with one exception, that I've tabled, offer a final chance, different routes by which your Lordship's House could take a pause, allow reflection, for the science, for the understanding to catch up. And I think it's telling that in the last few weeks, I've had 3 major groups of scientists from different fields reach out to me to ask for advice on how they can get through to the government, in the words of one, to get the government to understand our issues, close quotes. Now, there's further evidence for that, and I will be commenting further in the next group, Government Amendments 3, 5, 6, 9 and 10. These are amendments to foundational elements of the bill. This is not mere tidying up, crossing the T's and the odd dotting the I's. It's reminiscent of the mess that we encountered at committee stage in the procurement bill and the now gutted and apparently defunct schools bill. But here we are at the final stage, the absolute last detailed consideration of the bill, and the government is still trying to play around with what it's actually all about. So, as I said, what these amendments that I've put down today do, 12 is somewhat different, but the others are all focused on giving us a chance to go slower, to pause, to look at this somewhat differently. So at committee stage and in the other place, there was much debate about whether animals should be included in the bill. Something that, to draw a parallel, as far as I'm aware, is not even being considered in the yet-to-be-settled debate on gene editing in the European Union. So it's an issue of great interest to farmers, growers and food manufacturers in the UK, those who are still managing to export there, even after Brexit. And of course I note that Noble Lords will see from the briefings that the concern for organic growers and farmers in the UK is very high about this bill. Now, Amendment 27, in the name of the Noble Lady Baronesses Hayman, Baroness Parmenter and the Noble Lord of Winston, and its associated amendments make up the rest of this group. They set out a timetable, a very fast timetable, of 2026 for farm animals and 2028 for other animals. That's better than nothing. That's the best that I can say about it. And should it be put to a vote, I'll be supporting it. But that's still a very short timetable in view of the time it takes for science to get from the lab bench to the peer-reviewed publication, let alone in the time it takes to then reach government understanding. So Amendment 1 excludes animals. Amendment 2, in my name, would exclude animals and plants not used for food production. We've been told again and again by the government that it wants this bill for food security. It wants to be able to produce food, even though it looks a lot like a bill designed for and by the multinational-dominated biotech sector. But if it is for food, why allow companion animals? Or indeed, as the Noble Lord Winston said at committee stage, and the Noble Lord the Minister admitted, the gene editing of great apes. That's what this bill allows. The species whose closeness to us has only just been highlighted this week by research showing we have an embedded understanding of their gestural language. So what I've done with my amendments 1 and 2 is offer the House a final chance to deliver the changes to the bill that many were expecting. It's not my intention at this point to call the vote on either, unless the House should signal that it does want to reflect and pause, and at least proceed more slowly on a major change in our relationship with the natural world, in the natural world, as human animals in an immensely complex system that has developed over hundreds of millions of years. So a final thought on the damage we've done in the past century or so. Instead of relying on and working with natural systems, what we now call agroecology, when crop yields have fallen, we've thrown NPK fertiliser at the fields, produced often at massive carbon cost and with huge environmental impacts. When a field's got pests or diseases, we've thrown a pesticide at it, a poison. And it's safe, they say, until it's shown that that pesticide isn't, the most recent being, of course, neonicotinoid pesticides, whose use the government has again just approved, despite weekly new reports of their dangers. That reductionist silver bullet approach to managing our world has got us where we are today. With the world's soils in a parlous state, the planet's capacity of geochemical flows exceeded, biodiversity in a state of collapse, and public health exceedingly poor, even or especially in the wealthiest nations. H.L. Mencken said, quote, "Every complex problem has a solution which is simple, direct, plausible and wrong. We really have to stop reaching for the wrong solutions, which is what this bill does. My amendments 1 and 2 at least slow down that outreach. I beg to move."
Amendment proposed, page 1, line